Greetings, welcome to Extra Hours as part of the Office Hours Global network. My name is Grant Whitehead, reporting from Adelaide, South Australia. We have a group of people that we've assembled from the Office Hours community, have all been around for some time, but not all have been on this show, Extra Hours on a Monday night. So let's go around and say hello. First to Guy Cochran up in Seattle, Washington. Hello, sir.
Hey, good evening from the Northwest, where it's a beautiful sunny day. Good to see all the folks from around the world here, especially Tony, man. Tony's got his own show, but he's never been on this one, so go, Tony.
Nice. Very good. Yes, good to have you here. Hey, one thing I was thinking about, Guy, that I'd like you to have a think about is during this time is I was thinking about having people talk about a highlight from Office Hours this week, because not all of us get to see all of Office Hours every day.
What? The humanity.
Yeah, that's right. You probably
you must
more
watch
than
every
most.
Episode. All.
And take notes.
Yeah, and take notes.
But you more than most, I think, would probably do get to a lot of it, and so have a little think about the last set of 7 episodes, and think about some highlights there. I'll let you have some thinking time. Back by popular demand is Paul Wallus. Hello, Paul. Good to have you back.
Yeah, howdy, Grant. Down here in Hot Springs in the southern central U.S. today. And what am I supposed to talk? Am I supposed to talk now about the highlight, or is that later on?
Have you got one?
Well, I guess today was, I asked a question. I wasn't on the show, but I asked a question about a microphone, and turns out one of the panelists actually had that microphone. Chris from Oregon, and it was this. What do you call it? It's a 512. It's a 512 mic. And doesn't it look cool, Grant? Isn't that cool looking
cool.
mic? I tell you, man, that is cool.
I mean,
anyway, it sounds good too, which is more important. And
well, Paul,
Chris
when you speak about
sports guy in Oregon, he's using it.
Oh, that's right, yeah. When you speak about microphones, everyone just listens because you know a thing about microphones. Because there was a season there on Office Hours where
you know they
just
don't
every
allow
day
sarcasm here. You know that, right, Grant?
That's not sarcasm. No, I'm like you probably have more microphones than anybody else in Office Hours. You seem to have quite the collection.
I guess I'll play along, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I know quite a few guys on Office Hours that have enormous microphone collections. But anyway, that was my highlight today, that Chris had that mic, and I think I'm going to hook it up pretty soon.
Very good. Well, I was going to say long-time listener. He's probably not been a long-time listener of Extra Hours, but Tony Mobley, you have been around Office Hours for a very long time. First time on Extra Hours. It's so good to have you, Tony. How are you tonight?
I am fantastic. We have sort of dreary weather for us here in metropolitan Atlanta. A lot of thunderstorms and a lot of heavy rain, and all my systems were knocked out last night, and I came into the studio and the lights were on, but all the computers were off. So it was a really interesting chain of events, but we're still having storms right now, as a matter of fact, but we're good. Happy to be here.
Hope you stay safe. We've got we had some storms here as well. I was thinking about that when Guy normally talks about being in the Pacific North wet. and is not at the moment, but it is here. It's getting very wet down in South Australia. So you just never know now. I don't think you can't guess what the weather is like in the world, because it seems to change all the time. So you had lights on, but no one was home in your studio there, it seems.
That's right.
So Tony, since the first time on Extra Hours, a little backstory. I mean, people. I guess we go in lots of directions, but just briefly, how it is that you came across office hours, and your background is in education, right? Is that right?
My background is in education, but I'm retired. I was a special education teacher. I had high school autism students. And the way that I came into office hours is that I've been a fan of Leo Laporte's for years, back in the old days, because I'm an old guy, so I can talk about the old days. And I ran across Alex when he was in Africa and doing different jobs that he was sharing on. I can't think of the name of the app now, but it was before Blab, and he was sharing his experience. No, it was before Periscope. It starts with an M. I can't think of what the name of it is.
Meerkat.
But it was the Meerkat. Alex was sharing on Meerkat his experiences in Africa and the different jobs he had, and I've started following him from that point on. And at the pandemic, I was diagnosed with cancer of prostate, and I had to go through this journey of going to the hospital where everybody was being treated for COVID. And so at the same time, the church that I was working with, a small rural church I was working with, had to close their doors, and they had to figure out a way to continue to have their worship services. And so I ended up coming to office hours, asking a million questions so that I could help this small church navigate the pandemic. And I have to say, the office hours community was extremely helpful and generous in sharing information. And I would ask, I think, for this community, kind of simplistic questions, because people were, professionals in all forms of video production. And I was just trying to make it work for this small church. And Grant, I have to say that I learned so much, and I was able to, this small church is now doing YouTube of the spoken word. Their sermons are on YouTube, and we've had people that have been a part of the office hours community come and do live productions in theaters. And I mean, it's just amazing the imprint that a small church has been able to do because of office hours. And so as a result of trying to help somebody else with the way in which they look on camera, I reached out to Guy Cochran and Ken Jordan and Chris Fenwick and a whole lot of other people, trying to help a politician in Georgia who was running for state office. And we were trying to help him, do a new thing in terms of politics. And Alex was on board with this being a lab. And, the politician decided, I'm just going to go back with the old way of doing things, which he lost. And the amazing thing was that I had got all these people together to try to help this politician, and Ken Jordan and Guy, they said, well, you need to do something with all these resources that you have. So Conversations with Tony Mobley was born. And so we have over 100 plus episodes. And I've had fantastic conversation with office hour members and other people in a variety of industries and music and education and theater and you name it. We've had conversation with people that we've talked about. We've had some very engaging, powerful conversations. And one of the things that I feel extremely good about in these conversations that I've had is that they are authentic, genuine conversations. There's no got yous. There's no, trying to rub people the wrong way. We just want to have genuine conversations. We want to really get to know the person. And then at the same time, if they're in technology, we want to talk about technology. If they're in arts, we want to talk about arts. And so that's just where we are. And so that's it.
Do you know that's so good? And Tony, you like it was very early days of office hours that you were around, and I remember you asking lots of questions, and so you were a great student because you were asking lots of questions and you were applying things and then coming back with more more detailed questions. One of the things I feel about you, particularly in the office hours community, is that you're really like a cornerstone or like a foundation of the community. And so I think about, as we've had anniversaries and things, that there's always a time where Tony will come on and speak about, what office hours has meant to you. The funny thing for me is that the things that a couple of the kind of rules in a way that have made office hours work really well is that it's family friendly, like it's a clean show. You can be comfortable that people can, my kids can walk in and they're not going to, hear inappropriate language or anything. So that's a really key thing. We don't talk about religion and we don't talk about politics. And what's hilarious to me, Tony, is that you did that while helping religion and politics, right? You were able to actually ask all the questions that was helping religion, which is totally fine, right? And lots of us have some of that background and want to be able to support in house of worship and that sort of thing. But it was without talking about religion or talking about politics. You were able to help in those two specific areas very helpfully with this technology and media and online and all of that. And people were only too happy to help, which I think is a real testament to the fact that we don't necessarily know what everyone believes about their religion or political views or anything like that, but all have the same free giving of information and sharing and that sort of thing, which I think is kind of amazing.
I just want to say that I think part of the way it's able to come across is because I learned from Alex that anytime you're doing anything, you want to be an advocate for those people who might be listening. And I think that the way in which I present things is that this is information that anybody, anywhere, doing anything that just wants to get information on getting started can glean from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works. So check out. So when is it Wednesdays that Conversations?
Yes, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this week's guest is Leo Mendel, who is going to be talking about his technology, but also how he has had the opportunity to visit so many different people in the office hours community. And he's a world traveler, and he's had a lot of visits, in-person visits with office hours members. So that's going to be part of our conversation on Wednesday night.
So good. Very good. All right. we better get to our last panelist, also first time on Extra Hours, before he falls asleep. Ken Jordan, joining us from Wexford, Ireland, but originally from, where are you from? UK somewhere?
Yeah, London, born and bred.
London.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, so quite a move to a very rural Ireland is where I'm presently at.
It's a tree change, not a sea change, but a tree change. Is that? Yeah.
And I'm still. I feel very nervous in this setup because not in my my studio hasn't been built. We've only just moved into this house, and so I'm in my wife Helen's office. Not using her setup. I'm using my iPhone as a camera. I'm using this laptop as the screen, and
It
this
looks great.
and this Rode NTG1 for the audio, and and just overhead lights, and I've got another iPhone with a little flashlight thing on it. Really uncomfortable with the setup. Great. So excuse my nervousness about that.
Tell us about how it is that you got involved in office hours. I remember seeing you come along really early, and then anything that any kind of gear that someone would suggest, next week you'd have it. And normally it'd be Alex saying, "Oh, you should definitely get a Blackmagic camera," and most of us will go, "I can't afford a Blackmagic camera right now. I'm going to do something else." But next minute, Ken has all the toys and the lighting, and just like within a very short space of time, you went from basic to kind of advanced.
Yes. It's one of those traits that I have once I get I can get very obsessive very quickly about something, and then I just dive all in.
You're all in.
My normal setup is because not just one, got 3-4 Blackmagic cameras. My main camera is a Ursa Mini. Lighting is Aperture P300s, 2 of them, which I normally. So all of that I'm talk about as if I've got it here, because I'm so used and comfortable with that. With my
it's in a box somewhere, though, is it?
Yes, and I was desperately searching for at least my my mic and my Mix Pre 6.2 to connect to, and I haven't found that. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to buy all these toys, but when I got into office hours, because it was, I suppose, when the pandemic hit. It wasn't, I know terrible it was, but it actually, for me, because I'm very much introverted, and so it wasn't that big a thing for me. But being in front of camera, that was very new for me, because I'm very much behind the scenes person. And so office hours kind of got me to be still not that comfortable in front of camera. But if I was going to be on camera, I wanted it to look good. So very much an advocate of, as I always said, whatever Alex was saying or others were saying what to do and get, I would just go out and get it to have that set up. And that's worked very well for me in the business, because presenting well on screen is so key. Now the business meeting and stuff are kind of go to when you have that professional setup. You do kind of dominate the conversation, even though they say don't judge a book by its cover. We all do, and it's having a very good presence. That's why I'm so nervous on this, because this I'm not comfortable with this. Even though I know I'm surprised at how good it does look with the iPhone as a camera. So I'm comfortable enough with that.
I think on that, like, what I think you've done is it's not just the things that you've got at the moment that you just cobbled together, but you've got the camera right up at your eye height.
Oh,
You know, you've actually got a whole bunch of depth behind you, which is making the iPhone work even better. You've got a good microphone that is working well, and so whatever it is that you might be, struggling with from our point of view, your sound's good, it looks good, lighting has worked out well, and so it's worked well.
Yes, yes. This is like minimum table stakes for anybody.
Yeah.
So there isn't an excuse. There isn't an excuse for anyone being on Zoom, because you can use your smartphone as the camera, okay, and invest in the mic, in a good mic. Isolate yourself. So even though I'm not my Bumblebee earphones I'm normally wearing, but I'm wearing these big clunky things, so if you isolate yourself, then you can have a good presence on Zoom, or in any video conferencing solution. So yes, this is the minimum table stakes, I think.
Yeah. So your background, I'm kind of reluctant to say web developer, because that doesn't seem to be like all-encompassing for you,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's funny. I've been on Tony's show multiple times now, and Tony's first question is, who is you, or who is Ken Jordan? And every time I struggle with that question. I've been in the tech-related field ever since I started work. My first job was running Arthur Andersen's computer graphic department. I was 20 years old, and that's 41 years ago. And I've been in digital design, graphics, marketing, media, all that time. So I've run new media companies. So yeah, it's a difficult hat to, there's not one hat that I can kind of put on. So I've been in the understanding of using tech. I mean, I'm actually very late to Macs, but I am now, because I was very much a PC person, because it was, at the time that was, I was running, we were using, doing computer graphics on a PC. It was running CGA, which was 320 by 200 with 4 colors from a palette of that 4, or then another 4, a palette of 8. That was CGA. I remember then EGA came on with 16 colors, and then VGA 256 colors. It was amazing, doing computer. So I was very much into even though I'm a trained graphic designer, but using computers for so long, it's kind of, so I have the technical end. And I very late came into Mac. So even though I was running new media agencies and all my designers were all on, or had Macs, I couldn't understand because if a thing didn't have a C prompt, it wasn't a computer as far as I was concerned. But when I left that field and became freelance, and I did a lot of photography, ran a photographic agency, and we had an enormous job of having to process all these photos, a lot of photography we had to do. And I went to Oxford Street, bought the Mac Pro, the old, it was called a cheese grater now. That was my first computer, and a Mac laptop, MacBook Pro. And I plugged my Nikon camera in, on the card in, and it just worked. And that was it. That was, it just, I'm such a Mac fanboy now. It's embarrassing, because everything I have now is have everything Apple brings out. I get. So Yeah, that doesn't really answer your question, which was
No,
but
it does, because I think I think we come there's like this point, particularly around tech. One of the things that you've been involved in is the main officehours.global website, and clearly you've had lots of experience with WordPress and building out sites and things, and I think there's either one of two directions you come to it from. It's kind of either the graphic side, and that informs what you're trying to do, and you'll work out scripts and you'll work out things because of how you want it to look, or you're more technical and you're thinking, I want to do this almost no matter how it looks. And it's kind of those two different approaches. And for me, I tend to be a little bit more on that tech side, and get frustrated by how it looks, because I know what looks good, but I can't do it myself. But when someone can give me a skin and say, this is what I want it to look like, then I can make it, work. So has that, because it seems like there's a graphic side for you, there's a tech side, and probably it's a Venn diagram of then business management and that sort of thing as well. Is that fair to say?
yes, yes, it is. I think the business side is the main focus first on any of the stuff that we build, is kind of ROI, return on the investment on building on anything we build. And even though I said I've trained graphic designer to web designers are the worst people to build a website for you, because 99.999% of them have no business knowledge, and they're building a website to show off to other web designers. So, and I know that's the case. Do you want a
countdown? Do you want a countdown on there? How about this widget? How about the weather? Yes. Would you like the weather on there too?
It is such a so I have very strong views on how websites should be built. So strong that if you build them any other way, then you're building it wrong. And proof of the pudding is what we do in building, that the websites work. They should be like a business partner. They should be earning money while you sleep, and they should work fast, and they should work on mobile first, because the numbers when I was doing it, the numbers were always were high for mobile. Now it's we're talking 85-90% of your audience is on a mobile phone. So all of those widgets and I was almost going to. I never was going to swear, but in my head, I do. Yeah, off the camera. Yes, what I was going to say is
it's 2 o'clock in the morning. He was letting his hair down.
It was yeah. So I have very strong opinions on how websites should be built, because they're not built. They need to be built for the viewer, and things like hamburger menus, drop-down menus. Because I was, one of my other jobs was at CompuServe. I ran the computer graphics department at CompuServe, and then it got taken over by AOL. And so I was at AOL. I was in the US for a while, when AOL are very, very big in user experience and seeing your work, and so we had mirrored. So we had people in using the system, and you were watching behind like kind of one of those police interview rooms. There was a mirrored thing that we were seeing them interact. And when you see people actually interact with design and what you think they should do, oh no, well that's so obvious that they should be clicking on that, and they don't. You really do get to learn what does work and what doesn't. So yeah, I can go on and on about how websites do
Yeah,
it, but I
great.
won't. It's
Oh well, I mean, it could be a special episode talking just all about it, because I think it relates so much to what we're doing. One of the things that it feels like we're just doing an introduction. We're halfway through the show, but what I want to do is, since we're not going to get you on super regularly because it is the middle of the night for you, but so because you're here now, I am interested in your thoughts on last week when we were talking all about AI, and specifically the video that we were talking about. But I was excited and intrigued when you said that you were yelling at your screen a couple of times.
Yes.
Tell us what your thoughts were.
okay. I suppose I've been. We as for our work and our company, we've been dove headfirst into AI and using it for our workflows, and but not just for our workflows, but for our clients, and building AI solutions for them and using AI. And to me, it's just a tool. It's a super powerful tool, but it is a tool, and it's not, because it's funny. It's almost, if you were presenting a photograph and you retouched it in Photoshop, you wouldn't say kind of thing that it was just just that you don't say oh yeah, I'm using this word processor to produce this document. To me, it's it's just that. It's just a super powerful tool to use. It is production ready. The stuff that we do and produce with it for work, and I suppose when not so much naysayers about it, well, it really is, I suppose, but I didn't want to say that. To me, it's just great then, because it just means that I just have an even extra advantage from those, because basically everyone, I haven't found an area where there isn't a use where you could use AI to enhance your workflow, to improve what you're doing, and to make things easier, to give you more time. Even though, yes, AI was probably tenfold increased what we can do now, but it hasn't actually made any more time. I just love every new development, every new thing that it can do and produce. So I suppose that's part of my, and it seems a very common trait with a lot of people on here, because I suffer greatly from ADHD. So massively, so it is, and I didn't even know about that until my wife. She was the one that brought it up, and I said, that's just an excuse for being lazy, I think, for being, but actually no. And anyway, that's another story. I won't go down that route. But
another good story.
But yeah, it is. What I love about it is I love clients who aren't using it, and we are showing them how they can use it, and how how it improves what they can do, and just makes their life or work that much better. And I think that's one of the biggest jobs I like actually educating others who especially think of that, well, what can it do for me? Is that really, there's so much kind of more, it's not so much easier to be negative about something, and I know all about that. I mean, it's one of the questions. I think I might do a show with Tony about it, but it does get kind of political, because I used to work in the news media, worked for the UK's largest newspaper group, ran their new media department. And when you're behind the scenes and seeing how actually the news is made and who makes it, how that works, things haven't changed. And even though I did that multiple years ago, the fundamentals of it are still the same, because it's human. How will you get to the human subconscious, that doesn't change, even though now we can do it much more with AI tools, you know. So yeah, sorry, I went off on a
No, that's it's all good. I think when we think of AI tools and using it to help us, to aid us in what we're doing, I think generally that's all exciting and it's fine. Where all the fear comes in, I think, is there's this automation step. So then I think that even with what we're doing, there's lots of things that are kind of speeding up or automating some of the steps that we would have done before. As you know, with coding and things like that, now it's like, okay, you know, write the code for this, and away it goes. It's never perfect, but it's getting closer and closer all the time.
It can be perfect, by the way. I would. That's another thing I would think. It is. If you, the mistake that make in, for example, for coding, we use Claude, it's now Claude 4 for coding. The mistake that's made is, because yes, it needs training. And when it does make a mistake, sometimes it is so much easier, oh, well, I know how to fix that and I'll just fix it. It takes more time to put it back in until it gets it right. But it's worth that effort to get it, even though it might just be a tiny mistake that's made, that it takes you seconds to fix outside of it. Spend the hour or two training it to get that right, because when you do, it then doesn't make that mistake again. So, yeah, you know, it is always smart. I mean, it's, oh yeah, well, it still makes mistakes. It does, but if you train it and you constantly don't let that go, because the temptation to quickly fix it outside of it, then that's why it will always then make that same mistake if you don't train it to do it properly. Again, it's just a tool. So that's how we use it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think where the fear comes in is when AI is doing its own thing. So at what point, because we're not fearful that our hammer is just going to start banging on the wall by itself, right? As a tool, it's always at our hand. It's always we're driving it. And you could probably say this about technology in general, and we've talked about this before, that whenever this new technology has come in, there's been this fear about it. How is it going to work? And you know, I talk about when the people the elevators or lifts operators, you know, were no longer required, and people were losing their mind that they would go into this box and somehow it would know where to go and be okay with it, and we'd be fine without an operator. There was so much fear. So I think with each technology, big advancement in technology, there's been fear around it doing something. But I think there is a genuine fear somewhere, like, where is it getting its instruction from, and is it able to react or instigate functions based on no human intervention? That's a key concern, and that the term AI is used everywhere, and it's unhelpful that it's that way, because making a song or a picture or something is not a big concern, but taking over control of a car or a factory or whatever it is that's now reacting to things that are happening around, that's, I think, where the fear comes in, that it becomes an entity of its own right?
Yeah, and that will come. It will happen. I remember it was one of the shouting points I was having at the screen when talking about, well, yes, but it can't, though. It can't, go and mine for things for energy. There's more than enough energy in the world. We waste a lot of it. What it will do will just use that energy. The way that it would manipulate I mean, this is where then the real story, because if you're writing about it, how you get it to work is, because this is how news works now. It would feed a story in the news, and then that's why then those people will then do something, which, because they were fed it, that used to happen before AI, but now it's just even better at doing that. So the fact that it doesn't need to mine, because one, there's enough energy, it will just stop the waste energy that we're presently using for it to doing that. Its energy usage is actually using less. I mean, the latest release, and you need to stop me because I can go on with this forever. The latest release from Google was that its massive advancement wasn't down to compute. It was down to its new programming way. It wasn't using tons and tons, because basically you can throw tons and tons of compute at it for it to get better and better. And it was, people were saying, oh, we kind of reached that as a ceiling because, that's the only way it can progress, by throwing more compute. It's not the way. We saw that change when DeepSeek came along from China. They had restricted access, and they brought out a model which is on par to others without needing that compute. What Google have presently done, and they were behind on this. They were behind, when I should qualify that. Google were the reason why we've got the AI as we have now, because they've been doing this for decades. But they were watching that they were, but this is very unlike Google. They weren't releasing those models early because they were, they said, well, it can be a bit dangerous because they wanted to put more safeguards and stuff in. But Google will be the leader in this because they have years and years of experience with this. They're the start of it. This is why we've got this. They released their first model, which then Meta took on and then released Llama, but I won't go into the history. But what they are doing now isn't yes, of course it's using compute, but it's the advancement made wasn't by throwing a lot of GPUs at it. So, this is, AI's growth is exponential. People are saying, oh, well, it can't really do this. Look at the video. I'm sure you've seen the VO3 videos. Whereas before I could spot, just oh yeah, and you knew that was AI. Probably now, maybe 6 out of 10 videos that can be produced by VO, I can't tell. And that's, and we're only, and that's, this VO3 has been released now. The quality of the output, it's, when people say, oh yeah, well, that'll be in a few years. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in a few years, because in a few days, those advancements just keep happening. In a few weeks, heaven knows by the end of the year what it's going to be like. So everyone says, oh yeah, well, about 2030 it might do that, and a month later it gets done. That's the level of growth. People don't really truly understand what exponential means in terms of that. So yes, there is a fear with what it will do and take over, but it will be done by, it doesn't need access to minerals to be able to put things together. It just needs access to humans, which it has, because you can feed a story to someone and they go off and do some great things or some terrible things. And if you believe, because your feed is, especially if you've got very narrow feed, which unfortunately a lot of people do, they do not, they take things as gospel from this particular feed that they have. You know, that's and so easy to manipulate. I know it. We used to do it back in the day before I was around, you know, and what we used to do in building adverts or news stories. So that's how, you know, it will, you know, take over. But yeah, the fear is yes, when it starts programming itself, then that's what it is, and that's what Google's model partly does. That's why it's such a great increase without using that compute. And that's, even for me, I look at that and say, wow, okay. But I suppose, you know, what the way I work now is, you know, we're fully on board with it, so we use it, understand it, work with it. And I'm looking forward to the day where I can just sit back, set my agent off, and so give me more free time to be on shows like this and have that human interaction, because I think that's really where we're going to be, where we're going to have more time to have these face-to-face. I go to the beach, I go swimming in the morning. All those kind of things is really, you know, loving the nature I've got around me and having the time to do that without having an agent going off and doing that work. So maybe that's you know, a Nevada that I think of, but that's my positive attitude. That's the way that I think about it going forward.
I really like that, and I think about that with a hope. The interesting thing about humans, I think, is that just because we have the time doesn't mean that we necessarily reach out to each other. And so with given more time, do we spend more time with other people? Well, not the way that our culture is currently. And my hope is that what you're saying is true, and that we do actually spend more time like a village, you know, did, and have more community. I remember we're talking about technology, hearing about when washing machines, you know, came in, washers and dryers of clothing, was the promise of that was to save so much time for a family that doesn't need to be washing their clothes by hand now. Is hours and hours a day, or hours and hours a week that you would save. And in theory, that would open up time for you to be able to do other things. I'm not sure that it did. I think that we filled that with other things. But the human experience is changing, and there's we're going to the extreme, I think, with content. Like, we're getting content down now to not minutes but seconds. How quickly people can doom scroll, how quickly we know whether we like this or not within less than a second or two. We're like, nah, yes. We're getting to this extreme of this, to where people are saying, actually, I don't want to be doom scrolling anymore. I want to get back to who I am, you know, who I am and how I connect with my community and things like that. And I think that's exciting. But there is, it's with more time, I guess. What does it mean? And I think we're going to have to be proactive, and it's going to take community leaders to bring people together. It used to be the church, you know, and in some places, and for some people, that still is the case. But it's not the vast majority. Communication, world communication, you know, when war broke out, it was at the church that you found out that war was on. It was at the church, the local community church, that you found out that war has ended. And, you know, I'm talking 60 years ago, 70 years ago, that type of thing. Well, that's now not the case. We're more connected than we ever have been, but possibly the least connected that we've ever been, as a human connections that we have with people. So I find that fascinating with what you're talking about. More time to connect. Well, that's going to take some energy. And coming from an introvert, as you said, what does that mean? It's like, what does it mean to connect more? And what we've done here, we've talked about how, I don't know if you heard me say, Ken, about how when I was at NAB, there was people that I spent time on in Zoom, that it was a hug. It was like this strong connection that we had. The people that saw me on YouTube was a handshake, right? It was just slightly separate.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Leo, because I thought it was Leo, because Leo came when we were in Ashted in Surrey, and he came around, and it's the first thing you do is hug. When I saw Hasmukh, same thing. Yeah, because, and I think that's this, what Alex started with Office Hours and this show, the Rundown, Tony's show. These are, these kind of connections are just as, to me anyway, and I think for most of us who have been on them, just as real as if we were, sitting face to face and having that this chat. And things like Zoom has allowed more and more of us to do that. And I think that is, more shows like this, more people, seeing this, and Tony's show and Office Hours and the Rundown and things like that are where are showing that we are one human race, and we can talk and communicate without being without the kind of the negativity and there are more there are more shades of grey than everything kind of being black and white. And I think that's what that's why I enjoy kind of being on the show, even though it's almost 3 a.m. It's these are things, this kind of human interaction is I think will grow more and more, because well, I believe that anyway. And by having that kind of positive, I think having a more positive attitude to everything is a much better way to it actually gives you more time, and much better way to feel. And so I'd always look at the positive side of it, and I think that then just gives me more energy to moving forward.
Brilliant. Thank you. 50 minutes in, should we take our first question, Guy?
Yeah, you ready? Well said, Ken. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
First question's coming in from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas, and he asks, do you think that Google's new Flow app, which uses Veo, Imagine, and Gemini to create stitchable 8-second video clips, will be a production game changer?
Ken, you sort of touched on that a bit.
Yeah, I already have. Yes, yes, it is. VO2 was a production game changer. All of them, Mid-Journey, presently, it's all on how you use it in production. This one, yes, this one especially, as I said earlier, I think 6 out of 10 of the videos that we can get and produce with it, I couldn't tell that it was the AI generated. That's how good VO3 is. And yeah, 6 out of 10 for me, probably 9 out of 10 for others who aren't that kind of involved in the media game as well.
Yeah,
that much. It's that good.
Yeah, looking for the telltale signs or things like that, the uncanny valley type aspects of it. Most people will not be looking for that, and are just taking it at face value, right? Yeah, it is mind blowing. Cool. Next question.
Got one in from Peter Rosado in Las Vegas asking, are any panel members reading the Apple and China book? I started the Audible content today, but the YouTube coverage is interesting in how the book presents Apple as a key enabler to, and enablers in air quotes there, to China and its global tech manufacturing position today.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are, but I am fascinated by it.
Yeah, I started watching a little bit of the video today, and it did talk about the significant investments that Apple had put into China. More importantly, before this if you go on Netflix and watch how the U.S. really funded China and got it in the 70s to where it is today, that's even more fascinating. I mean, it's history. It's just the country before the 70s, or actually before the 60s even, when they're just in agriculture to help build them into the technology giant they are today. And who knew that they would be a competing superpower? I mean, I don't want to stray off too far into the weeds here, but I almost just said something that's pretty political. But depending on, where where you think the world's gonna go, but it could go either way.
Well, I mean, I think that like globalization is a thing, you know, and I think that we are that countries are more connected than ever. And so it's an interesting thing to be not. We're starting to see a little bit of trying to push those relationships or break those relationships more, and there's a bit of that sort of happening. But the way that I guess it leads into the next one is talking, Ken, about your broadcast experience and the role of media. And then how we're hearing about things instantly, like we're hearing press conferences, or we're hearing about an executive order or whatever it is, right? That is happening immediately, and then a couple of days later, oh no, it's not, or this is changing, or whatever it is, feels different than how it might have been in the past. With how the speed of the news cycle, or the 24-hour news cycle, that sort of type of stuff.
Well, but yes, I mean, that's great. But I much prefer what it is now to what it was when I was working in that field, because I'm going to go too political about it, because but you know, you were being, it was 100% manipulation before. You know, everyone thinks, oh yes, we were much better back then. It wasn't. It really wasn't. If you were behind the scenes and knowing how media organization, news media organizations work, it's you wouldn't want to go back to those times, because you know that you were being told a certain truth. Well, basically, you were being told a lie, which to suit whatever the agenda, larger agenda for those corporate organisations are. You got to understand that news production is unbelievably expensive. You know, it's not a profit center. You know, and so you know, to get the quality news, it's very, very expensive, and because there's not money in it. So the way that they make money in it is by making it more palatable to the advertisers, and therefore, you know, what's actually said or produced. So I mean, you know, I was in the field. I don't watch any news. I don't have any news. If you look for my social media, even though I work in it and produce it for clients, I'm not on it. You know, because I was behind the scenes and knowing how the sausage was made. So therefore, not, you know, don't read any at all, and it just frees up the time and mind maybe for me to do more and more work, because I love working. But you know, it's you can today, if you put the effort in, you know, find out real, you know, what's actually happened. But I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't. I would more focus on yourself, on what you can do to improve yourself, what you can do to help others. Because the news is not designed to help you. The news is designed to make you feel bad, or it's you know, because bad news is what sells. Bad news is what spreads. It's not good news, because there's no money in it. And so therefore, make your own news, be good, and go out and help others. You don't need to be, if you spend a lot less time on the news and a lot more time being like on things like this and chatting and helping others, you will feel much better, and you'll have so much more time. Those things are going to happen. I'm not saying, don't totally cut off. I'm not unaware of what is happening, but don't, because I'm was news junkie. Whenever there was an election, I'm up all night looking at the results, things, and then that's just not. It's one, it's not productive, and two, it's just not kind of good for your soul, really. The more you can wean yourself off it, and the more you can focus on what you can do better for yourself and for others, it's gonna. Again, maybe that's a Nevada I'm living in, but by me focusing on that, I'm feeling much happier.
Yeah, I totally agree. I heard it said once that we now have to carefully curate our circle of concern, and it's more likely that is much more local, extremely local, than it is global. Because if we're thinking about us and our local community and the place where we can make the biggest difference, it's likely that knowing about all of the world's problems in a moment becomes very quickly overwhelming, and takes away any of our ability to or motivation or desire to do anything. But when that's much closer to local and what we're doing on a more immediate level, it's achievable. So what's interesting about that for me, as I've been wrestling with that, is where office hours fits in there, right? Because we're global, and I think what happens is the way that it works is, rather than us, trying to tackle some large issue or whatever it is, what we often find, as was true for Tony, was that we as a community ended up helping a local church in its live streaming that made a difference there, or the politician, and whether it really helped the politician or ultimately actually helped Tony get his show up and racing. That, I think, is the local expression of what this global community is, and so the opportunity always to do those smaller, more local focused activities in making a difference, I think makes us all feel better. I don't think that it was for Tony, whether you feel this way, Tony, whether it was like you were receiving all of this, but actually it was two-way. It was people were giving and receiving from that, and feel part of what was going on, and part of making conversations with Tony Mobley work well, and being involved in that was a community. It was a common experience that people were wanting to give into. It didn't feel like a debt that they're paying into someone else, right?
Absolutely. It was amazing in terms of the amount of people that jumped in and spent their own resources to lift up the infrastructure. We started out with all Video Ninja, vMix, all kinds of software, trying to figure out the best method for producing a quality show. And at the same time, people were able to glean information from learning how to do conversation with Tony Mobley. And there are people, and I'm sort of projecting when I say this. I think that there were people who were able to benefit from producing Conversation with Tony Mobley and create businesses, get promotions, start new careers, and that opportunity still exists for those that want to jump in and help us now that we're using Memo Live. And I say that as a joke, but there have been actual people who have benefited from getting information from running the background, the back end of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And at the same time, who would have thought a church in Middle Georgia with fewer than 20 members would be able to have a service that is on YouTube, have a New York lighting director travel to Macon, Georgia, and then do the lights for a play in the local theater in Macon, Georgia. That's unheard of. How could that happen? So when you think about, and that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the things that have happened. But the idea that you have people who are willing, who tell me all the time, oh, I wish I had known about the production that was being done in Middle Georgia. I would have come up from Florida to help. It's that kind of thing and that kind of enthusiasm that encourages me to continue to do this. And at the same time, I think more importantly for me, that the church gets the benefit of all of this, and we are doing what we are required to do without getting into a sermon. So I just want to say thank you, Office Hours. Thank you, I don't want to say Office Hours family. I think about Mike Andrews, who in the very early days, he said, I need you to continue to be present because you bring value to the conversation that we're having. And I'm saying to him, look how I look. I'm the worst one on camera. I don't want to be on camera anymore. I want to stop. And he would say, he would call me if I missed a few days of being on Office Hours. He would call me. He'd say, Tony, we need you on there. We need you on there. We need you That's on cool. there. And Grant, I tell you, I miss him every day, because he and Alex really saw what we are doing right now in terms of, I know Conversation with Tony Mobley is, for a lot of people is small potatoes, but what I would say is that there is an authentic genuineness that we have that I can say I don't think many people or many shows have that. And I'm thankful every day that we're able to do it.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you, Tony. Man, our questions have been all over the place, tonight, but we've had such a good conversation. Paul, did you want to add something about the Apple in China?
Yeah, I did. I did, Grant. And I actually watched that YouTube video about China, how Apple went into China, and I hope I got this statistic right. They spent in the Marshall Plan, how we pumped up Europe. We just pumped money into Europe until they recovered. If you translate dollars back then to dollars now, we put twice as much as we put into the Marshall Plan. Apple by itself put twice as much money into China, building a manufacturing base, as the United States did in Europe after the war. I mean, it was an incredible amount of money. They tooled up China. They trained people, and everything was just going incredibly well until Xi took power. Xi, Xi, the leader of China, and everything turned around for Apple, and Apple's been playing catch up ever since. And because Apple created such an awesome manufacturing base in China, all these spin-off companies started competing with Apple and overtaking Apple. And now Apple is in a really awkward situation, and the United States is in a really awkward situation in that they created this manufacturing. Apple by itself made China a manufacturing powerhouse. This is like the story behind the news. The stuff you see in the news kind of pales compared to what actually was going on behind the scenes. And I would recommend you watch that video. I think you'll be stunned when you hear all the revelations in this video.
Ken, I wouldn't bother.
No, this is so. I mean, triggering almost. If you really understand how stories like this and stuff are made to make, you wouldn't. Don't believe everything that you see or read, please. Please, I just urge you, don't take everything as black and white in terms of, because that's not, the majority of what that is just not factually correct. It just, and it never is, because it did, as with everything, there are just layers that come to it. It just makes a very, the sensation, to sensationalize everything. That's why you see, it's done deliberately to get the views rather than something to do to help. So please take everything you see or read online with a massive pinch of salt, and don't take anything as read. It just isn't the case. So
have you seen that video?
No, I
Ken?
don't need to. I honestly, I do not need to know how
I
those
guess I
things
fell
are
for
made.
it, but
yes. I mean, because
it made a compelling case.
Well, of course they would, because it just it suits the narrative. So nothing is ever black and white, and it suits the narrative, and that's why then things can get spread, and then people are saying that, and it just really, it's never, I'm not saying it's all incorrect, but it isn't, that there isn't, when you put any story across in that way, to say that, Apple are the sole reason why Chinese manufacturing is, it's just not true, but it makes a narrative, because anytime you put Apple in a news story, you get 10 times more clicks, you get 10 times more views. Now you add China to it, wow, you've just made money. So yeah, but I'll stop, because
walk into your local Walmart, Paul, and ask me how many products that you think are made from Apple versus how many of those Chinese products are in your local Walmart, and see if that parallels perfectly. There's a lot of other things that are made, but yeah, I posted a link in the Mukana chat. It was called American Factory, is the name of the Netflix documentary that I tore into. That does have a lot more facts, as Ken was alluding to, that it tells the true history of how much America dumped in, and they didn't expect this result, I'm sure, but back in the days, we were looking for cheap labor, and we found it. We just ballooned it up and didn't reel it in. We didn't put enough constraints or put our equity stake. I mean, it's kind of gone the other way, where they've bought a lot of real estate here in the U.S. It's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I recommend you look at the actual video. Maybe next week you could give some feedback, but
no homework.
That's obviously
no
a lot of it is hyped up. Yeah.
Do you know, one of the things is, I think it ties in, Ken, you talking about the videos and things that could be made now. And so you build a content around a narrative that you already want, and now you've got supporting video evidence of that whatever that is. What I fear for, or I guess not fear, but my encouragement to my 3 kids is the thing that they can learn, they can benefit the most from learning is critical thinking. And it's like that's what I want to. That's what I want to teach them. That's what I want the school system to teach them. Is how to discern when you have competing narratives or competing, objectives around the same topic. Is how do you form your own opinion about some of these things? And I guess it gets back to the point of global versus local, right? It's like the bigger these things are, the less likely we are going to get to the fact. The more local it is, the more we can experience some of it ourselves. That we're actually seeing and hearing it, and we're not just getting it secondhand or third or fourth hand from the media, but that we are experiencing some of this stuff ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I won't name the company. You can look at my LinkedIn to guess who it is. But when a film was released, they released a film. We were the media organization behind them. What we used to do, I got my designers, each of them would make 3 different websites, all looking like they were done by just someone in their bedroom, promoting the fact, saying how great it was to fill the social, and this was way before kind of what social media was at the time. This is years and years and years ago. That's how what you do. We would make, the film would be released, and then you would have all these so-called little independents who saw it and said, oh, it's great, and all of this, and you'd fill that, because we could build a lot of websites very quickly and make them look not that quite professional, that someone and would seem like, wow, this is really big. That was 20, 30 years ago. And so, that's how those kind of things done. So yes, critical thinking is big. As I said earlier, don't believe kind of what you read, because a lot of it I would have felt produce, and I know it's not true because I made it, or made it for people who, paid me to make it, and we can make stuff that looks really good, looks like it came from X, Y, Z, and that's what they said, and it all to I know how the sausage is made, so that's about it. So.
Are you an evil genius?
No. It's not not evil. Well, I suppose in knowing, because I've worked for large corporates, and what they work for and what they produce, and I suppose it's actually funny if you, and maybe because I know Tony, I wanted to come on talk about it, because when I saw the rundown, they were talking about news and stuff, and it was, if you thought I was shouting at the screen at you guys last week, at the rundown, I was screaming. It was, on what really, on how really this stuff works and what really we do to manipulate people's thing. But the people that are behind it, they are the gentlest that you would, but I suppose they need to be able to write the stuff that they did that riles people up and gets people to say, oh, have you said this? Oh, isn't this terrible? It's the real story behind it. Maybe that's a story I should write. The people behind the news are some of the gentlest, loveliest people you could imagine. They wrote the best stories that could rile people up. total opposite to what they actually believed, those are the ones who could write the opposite, that way best. And that's the reality, and that hasn't changed because, as I said, humans haven't changed. We know how to tap in to that base. Oh, look at that. See, that's why I don't want my having using the iPhone and my. See, that's embarrassing. That's anyway. But anyway, I'll stop.
It was totally fine. Look, I think a problem for you, Ken, is that you just don't have any opinions on any of this stuff. I think that's really your weakness. You need to know what you think about more of these things. It was exactly why I wanted you to come on. So good. I love hearing your perspective on this stuff. It's unique, and you're able to articulate it so well. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Makes me want to do it more. We will get to. Let's do some content recommendations. I didn't get to the highlight, Guy. Whether you actually came up with a highlight from office hours this week, but
yeah, there was some interesting stuff. I'd probably say some of the perplexity stuff that we were talking about, and the AI stuff. I know this last weekend or last week's show was all AI, and this week we dove into it again. But I mean, it is such a hot topic. I mean, it is just changing everything. I mean, all landscapes. And so take it or leave it. It's coming. It's going to hit you upside the head if you're not paying attention. So this is a great thing about this show is a lot of the collective minds here are looking at it and saying, hey, wake up, take a look. I mean, like Ken talked about agents, and the more I learn about make.com and there was another one that we talked about earlier in the show that was like make.com, because I have some friends that are doing things that are pretty intense with make.com as far as pulling information from one place, another place, and then creating an entire website that updates with news that it wrote. And it's all from make.com, and it looks legit. Like you look at the website and you're like, AI did this entire website, including the images and the text, every day by itself for the last couple months with no human hands-on. It's just doing it every day, just grabbing all the news and sticking it on the site. So pretty impressive what you can do with these agents, and it's going to just get, as Ken was saying, more and more like what they were showing with in NVIDIA's release in India a couple months ago when they held up the new machines that are coming out, saying how they're 10, 20 times faster than what's existing. It's like they haven't even delivered the stuff that they had announced last year. Yeah, we haven't even got those installed. And it's already like, well, that's obsolete. And we're putting in these things that are smaller in space, and now the data centers can fit 10 times the amount of compute with less power. It's going to be bananas. I mean, the future's going to be interesting.
Well, there's a whole nother topic there, but it does. But I
just
tell you,
open up the can of worms, so why don't you?
I know, but do you know what I think it is, and I think it relates to everything that we've been talking about, is that by a website that can just be creating more and more content, all it's doing is creating more and more noise, and we look at it and we are totally turned off and disinterested. And I think what's happening now is more and more of this content that comes out, when it's disconnecting us from humans, we're less interested in how fancy it can be and how amazing. And ChatGPT is a perfect example. When you get these emails now from someone you know, and you know they were never going to write you a 4-paragraph email, right? They would have written you a couple of sentences, and now you've got this 4-paragraph email you've got to read through of ChatGPT, trying to get to the point of what it's about. I think hopefully what it's going to do is actually push us more towards real human connection. That I was thinking about this as far as how do I send heartfelt messages to people now? It's probably a video, right? Like it's to a point now. A text message is not enough because it could be automated, happy birthday, and I remember all these. You can make all these ChatGPT wonderful flowery comments. At what point is that disconnected from the true meaning of it? And now we actually just want to hear from the person in their own words. We don't want you to use someone else's words or some automated, tools or whatever that made you say these fancy words. We just want to hear what you feel. And so to be sure, it was like, do we even know if me sending a video message to someone is going to be questionable in the future as to, was that really me, or was that VO3 that was using my likeness and, you know, creating these things? Anyway, really what I was doing there is topics for the future for us to talk about. But I really love, as you can see, the intersection between technology and humanity, and that's being challenged right now. And I'm still equal parts excited and love using the AI tools to help me do the things that I want to do. And at the same time, I'm also wanting to, you know, to connect with people in an intimate way, you know, beyond just words and things. So there you go. Content recommendations. We'll quickly go around. Paul, have you got some content? Is it going to be basketball again?
Yeah. What did you say?
Is it going to be basketball?
Is it going to be what again?
Was it basketball last week?
No. Caitlin Clark got injured. She's out for 2 weeks. I won't be watching any basketball for a couple weeks.
Okay.
No, I watched a show, a dark comedy thriller called Sirens. It's got Kevin Bacon, it's got Julianne Moore, it's got Megan Fahey, and it's about an older sister who's taking care of her dad, who travels to a remote island where her sister is like been co-opted by this kind of cultish, you know, group on the island, and Kevin Bacon is the husband, Julianne Moore is like the cult leader, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous island photography, and I won't give away the plot or any of that, but it's called Sirens. It's on Netflix. It debuted about 4 days ago. I watched another show about a mystery thriller about the White House, but I'll save that for next week.
That's right. Yeah, don't sneak in just because it's on Netflix. You can't just sneak in another recommendation.
No.
Just one. Thank you, Paul. That looks good. Tony, have you got a content recommendation for us?
Grant, I'm gonna tell you messed me up because I had two as well.
You got to pick one.
And it's hard. It's really hard between these two.
It's like picking your favorite son or daughter. Is that what's happened?
Yeah. So I'm just going to say that the one that I did not say just premiered this weekend. That's the one that I did not say.
Okay.
Premiered this weekend in the U.S. Fantastic. The one that I want to say is 2073. I think it supports all of the things that we have been talking about tonight. So it's also on Netflix, 2073.
Nice. Well, Grant just stepped away for a sec. I'll go ahead and throw mine in here. So I got one. This is a friend of mine that used to work for Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's gone out on his own, and his name's Caleb Ralston. He's from this town that I'm in. I know his dad really well, and for the last couple of years, he's been doing Alex Hormozy, and he's really a great creator. So he did this segment on YouTube called "If You Struggle with Making Content, Please Watch This," and it's just so well done. Like, look at these shots. If you've ever been an editor and wanted to see how stuff cuts together, like, watch this and just look at the shots and then look and see how it's cut together. I mean, even him eating here, like, look at the view where it switches. Now he's got it coming from the top point of view, then back to the side, and he's just in a restaurant, and then he goes into, so it's kind of vlog style, but he has a drone and he goes down through Las Vegas, and then I think somewhere over here he goes back into he goes to eat and shows him ordering and things like that. But it just gives you so much insight as to how something's cut together. And then on top of that, not to throw two in there, but I will. His other video right before that was how to build a brand, and it's a 6-hour course. So he was saying that this is worth over $1 million if he was to put this up for sale. So it's free. Go, Caleb Ralston. It's on. And you're going to see more about this guy. He's going to blow up. You'll see what I mean. He's the man.
That's just what I was thinking, because I'm like, he's got 17,000 only 17,000 followers, right? Or subscribers. Yeah, it'll blow up.
Watch, he'll take off. Yeah, he will.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Ken, what's your 2 recommendations? Apparently, that's what's happening now.
I've only got, well, I have a lot more than 2.
A bunch.
There's only one, and it's better to, less is more. So
Yes.
there's a YouTube channel. I put the link in Makana, and it's AI Explained. The only person that you need to follow and watch whenever there's a new release. I want to keep my hands down. Embarrassing.
Should we put in my...
he does a proper deep dive into it, and no fluff, real deep level research. It might be a bit nerdy at times in terms of on that, but he kind of gets around all the hype of every release, and he does a proper analysis of the latest AI tools. Don't bother following anyone else. Honestly, I followed them all. This one guy, AI Explained, I said link in Makana, is if you really want to get the real, without any of the marketing hype behind what's presently, he's the best one.
That's great.
Until he gets bought, maybe. But then I'll change my recommendation. But presently, he's one to follow if you want to get the lowdown.
I feel like you snuck in that's multiple recommendations, because each one of the videos is one recommendation. So you did well. There we go. I'm just in your honor, I've got my fireworks going, just so you don't feel alone in your reactions. That's right. We can do them all. Well, we were hoping to be about an hour, and we've gone to 90 minutes. Thank you so much, Ken, particularly staying up late for us. It's been very, very cool. There's lots to think about. I'm glad that we got your perspective on some of that AI. I think that it's going to pop up in every conversation every week. Paul's doing the cheap version of fireworks very well, and on his output there. And nice to have you here, Tony, for the first time. We'll definitely have you back. All the best for your show on Wednesday, Conversations with Tony Mobley. You can check that out. And Paul and Guy, we'll see you regularly as well. I will just say that in a couple of weeks' time, there's the WWDC and Apple announcement. So there'll be the keynote that will happen during the day, and then we're lucky enough to be the next show that happens, and so we're pulling together a panel specifically for that, and so that's going to be really fun. So looking forward to that. There will be a way where we're going to be watching the keynote together somehow. There'll be something that happens live, and then of course there'll be extra hours that night where we'll be talking about it a bit. So that's in a couple of weeks, but we'll have another extra hours next week to talk about what we might expect is going to come out of that. Anyway, I want to thank the back end team for hanging in there with us, Peter, Alan, Robert and Taylor, for making Vector all work for us, and we continue to test cloud production in the way that we're doing this as part of this show. And I know, Guy, you're doing some ISO recording of this as well to be able to play around with some other systems as well, so that's fun too. So we keep using it as a testing ground for a bunch of things. So the fact that we were able to have a great conversation tonight as well is a big bonus. we created some content to play around with, but we also had a great conversation. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.